Welcome to some ideas you didn't hear at the Republican and Democratic conventions. Both parties spent their time blaming each other for the fix we're in and offering themselves as the cure. But we've been governed for years now by one or the other of them seesawing back and forth in controlling Congress and the White House, so self-absorbed and corrupted by money that neither seems willing or able to cope with reality or even to grasp what's happening to everyday Americans. By their very nature, neither party is capable of providing the radical critique we need, a blunt, even brutal assessment of a political system so dysfunctional as to call into question the survival of democracy. For that, we need independent voices and third parties. So here we go. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont is the longest-serving independent in the history of Congress, 16 years in the House of Representatives, 5 now in the Senate. Before he went to Washington, he served 4 terms as mayor of Burlington, Vermont, during which time the city was recognized as one of the most livable in America.
I am here to take a stand against this bill, and I'm going to do everything I can to defeat this bill.
You may recall what happened 2 years ago when Senator Sanders, having finished his usual Vermont breakfast of oatmeal and coffee, walked onto the floor of the Senate and began speaking.
What our job is to appeal to the vast majority of the American people to stand up and to say, wait a minute, I don't want to see our national debt explode. I don't want to see my kids and grandchildren paying higher taxes in order to give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires.
He spoke on for 8.5 hours.
We should be embarrassed, Mr. President,
castigating the agreement President Obama and the Republicans had made to extend the Bush tax cuts for the ultra-rich, lower their estate taxes, and jeopardize the future of the Social Security Trust Fund by diverting revenue away from it to other purposes.
We have got to stand tall and draw a line in the sand and simply say, enough is enough.
Around 7 that evening, Bernie Sanders finished, and what happened next was phenomenal. The Senate server, overwhelmed, went down, crashed. The switchboards were jammed, and like sparks from 100,000 watchfires lighting up the distant hills and hollows, his words flew across the country. That speech is now this book, entitled The Speech. I spoke with Senator Sanders earlier in the week. Good to have you.
Great to be with you, Bill.
I watched the Democratic convention, as perhaps you did, and I heard all the speeches about opportunity and solidarity, and I saw that vast array of faces of every color, every age, every gender. And I thought, there are still 2 Democratic parties in this country. The party out across the country of everyday folks like Michelle Obama's parents working paycheck to paycheck. And then there's the Washington Democratic Club, the corporate lawyers, the lobbyists, the Wall Streeters like Robert Rubin and Peter Orszag. And I was wondering as I watched, if Obama wins re-election, which party goes back to the White House with him? The party of the country or the party of the club?
Well, we certainly hope it will be the party of the country, the party of 25 million Americans without any jobs, the party of people struggling to keep their heads above water, the party of the people who want to see health care for all of us. But there is no question, Bill, of the enormous impact that big money has, certainly on the Republican Party, but on the Democratic Party as well. And I fear very much that unless we galvanize public opinion, unless we create the kind of progressive grassroots movement, the big money interest will continue to dominate.
Tell me how that money works. I mean, you've been on the inside 20-some odd years, as I said. How does it actually work? We hear money in politics.
Well, this is how it works. And this is what people do not appreciate. And it's true for Republicans and Democrats as well. You do not know how many hours every single week, how many hours every single day people walk into the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee or the Republican Committee, and you know what they do? They dial for dollars. They dial for dollars, hour after hour after hour.
Who are they calling?
They're calling a list of people who have money. That's who they're calling. And what happens when you do that day after day, month after month, your worldview becomes shaped by those people. And most of the money coming into your campaign coffers comes from those people, and you begin representing their perspective.
Well, it's more than that, isn't it? Because you just released a long report on the billionaires who are
Absolutely.
pouring money into the
Absolutely. We have right now, and this should frighten every American, as a result of this disastrous Citizens United decision, we're looking now at people like the Koch brothers putting in, one family, $400 million. Adelson worth $20 billion, putting in $100 million. We have over 23 billionaire families making large contributions, and I think that's a conservative number. So what you are looking at is a nation with a grotesquely unequal distribution of wealth and income, tremendous economic power on Wall Street, and now added to all of that is you have the big money interests, the billionaires and corporations now buying elections. This scares me very much, and I fear very much that if we don't turn this around, Bill, we're heading toward an oligarchic form of society.
But the people who are in charge of the system and could therefore change it are the people who benefit from the dialing for dollars. So what's the solution when you have the fox in charge of the henhouse?
Well, the immediate political solution is a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. The longer-term solution is people all over this country saying, we're not going to give up the democracy that has made this country great so that a handful of billionaires can control the political process. We ain't going to allow that to happen. We need public funding of elections, which I think is probably the most important thing we can do politically. Billionaires cannot and should not be allowed to buy elections.
I was taken that I think 64 villages, towns in Vermont, your home state, passed resolutions calling on Congress to endorse a constitutional amendment. What's happened to that? In fact, when our readers on our website heard that you were coming, a lot of questions were submitted to us online. One of them says, I've been following Senator Sanders' intention against the Supreme Court Citizens United for 2 years now. Why has so little happened? That's from Craig Crawford.
Well, first of all, this is what has happened. It's not only Vermont. We have a total of 6 states whose legislatures and governors have come out in support of a constitutional amendment. And just very, very recently, we have the president and his advisors talking about perhaps, not as strong as I would like, the need for a constitutional amendment. And millions of people have signed petitions. We had a petition on our website, over 200,000 people signed it. So it is slower than I would like it to be, but I think, interestingly enough, Bill, it is not just progressives who are disgusted. I think your average conservative looks around and says, is this really what America is supposed to be, when a handful of families can buy the political process?
What does it take to pass a constitutional amendment? We've done it 25 or 26 times in the history of our country, but it's a difficult process, isn't it?
It is going to be a long process, but this is what I like about the process. I think in the process, we're going to educate the American people about one of the most serious problems facing this country, and that is that virtually no piece of legislation will get passed in Congress unless it has the okay of corporate America and big money interest. So the absolute corrupting impact of big money is something we have to address. And I like the idea of taking it from state to state, legislature to legislature, having the people debate what kind of democracy do they want. I'm very proud. I come from the state of Vermont. We still have town meetings. Yeah. People get up and they argue about how much money they spend on the town plow. That's what democracy is about.
Do you have to dial for dollars?
I am very fortunate. I have, but I do it a lot less. We raise our money. I have to tell you, I'm very proud of this. We have 130,000 individual contributions averaging about $40 a piece.
Senator, what's your take on why so many young people and progressives are disillusioned with President Obama?
In my view, President Obama ran the best campaign for president that I have seen in my lifetime. He did what is enormously difficult: get young people involved, get working people involved, have a vision out there, get people excited. That's not easy stuff. He did it. What I think happened is, in a sense, the day after the election, he said to all of those people, all of that grassroots activism, thank you very much. Now I got to sit down and work with Republicans, and I got to start compromising, and I'm not going to fight for the vision that I campaigned on. For example, every speech that I give, I talk about the crooks on Wall Street and what their illegal behavior has done to this economy. And people say, Bernie, why aren't these guys in jail? Why isn't the Obama administration taking these people on? Why aren't we breaking up these large banks? From the White House, do you hear much about that? You don't. The power of big money, coming forward with the bold initiatives that get people excited. Say to them, listen, we got some right-wing extremists running the House. I need your help. We're going to change our disastrous trade policies. We are going to create a jobs program to put millions of people to work. But I can't do it taking on all the money, guys. I need millions of people standing with me